For a fleeting moment in the long, tumultuous saga of their lives, Jason and Medea found a measure of peace in the city of Corinth. After years of wandering, betrayal and bloodshed, they arrived in this ancient city, hoping to leave their troubled past behind and begin anew. The city, with its sun-warmed courtyards and gentle breezes, seemed to offer them a sanctuary, a place where old wounds might finally heal. Far from the chaos and violence that had defined their journey, Corinth promised a fresh start. The city bustled with life, its markets filled with laughter and the scent of ripe fruit, its temples echoing with prayers for peace and prosperity. Here, Jason and Medea could almost believe they were ordinary, their past misdeeds fading into distant memory. They became parents, raising 2 sons in the golden light of Corinth's courtyards. The boys' laughter rang out, bright and innocent, as they played among the olive trees and marble columns. To outsiders, the family seemed happy, an image of domestic bliss. Yet beneath the surface, shadows lingered, and the laughter sometimes masked a deeper, unspoken tension. Medea, once a princess and a sorceress feared across the lands, tried to suppress the wild, untamed part of herself. She poured her devotion into her children and her husband, hoping that love and routine could erase the memory of her crimes. Each day she fought to silence the ghosts of her past, to be the mother and wife she believed her family deserved. Jason, now a respected figure in Corinth, relished his newfound status. He was welcomed at feasts, consulted by nobles and admired for his heroic past. Yet, as the months passed, a restlessness grew within him. The quiet rhythms of family life, once a balm, began to chafe. He longed for adventure, for recognition, for something more than the simple joys of home. The peace they had built was delicate, its foundations laid atop betrayal, violence, and secrets. Like cracks spreading through ancient marble, old resentments and new ambitions began to widen the distance between them. Each day, the illusion of harmony grew harder to maintain. Medea had sacrificed everything for Jason, her homeland, her family, even her sense of self. But as time passed, Jason's gratitude faded. His gaze wandered, drawn to new possibilities and alliances that might further his ambitions. Medea watched, her heart heavy with sorrow and suspicion, as the man she loved slipped further away. Their sons, innocent and full of life, thrived in the warmth of their parents' love, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. To them the world was safe and bright, their days filled with play and gentle affection. But the quiet life they had built was only an illusion, a fragile pause in a story marked by tragedy. As dusk fell over Corinth, a sense of foreboding crept into the shadows, hinting at the darkness to come. Soon, the delicate web of their happiness would shatter, and the peace they had fought so hard to find would be lost forever. Jason, hungry for power, set his sights on Princess Glauce, daughter of King Creon. Marrying her promised legitimacy and a royal future, something Medea, a foreign sorceress, could never offer. He convinced himself this was best for everyone, ignoring the vows and sacrifices Medea had made. Jason presented his betrayal as a practical decision, dismissing Medea's role in his success. He spoke to her as if she were a problem to be managed, not a partner. Medea, once his equal, was now an obstacle to be discarded. The stage was set for disaster as Jason's ambition eclipsed his loyalty. Medea's fury erupted. This was not mere heartbreak, but a cosmic betrayal. She reminded Jason of every oath, every sacrifice, her voice sharp with accusation. His justifications only deepened her rage. He treated her as a burden, not a partner. Alone and isolated, Medea's grief hardened into a terrifying resolve. Her love transformed into a singular purpose, vengeance. The world had taken everything from her, and she would make it pay. Medea the wife vanished. Medea the sorceress emerged, plotting a revenge that would echo through history. The heartbroken woman was gone, only wrath remained. King Creon, fearing Medea's power, ordered her immediate exile with her sons. He saw her as a threat to his daughter and his city, not a wronged wife. Medea, ever cunning, begged for a single day to prepare, just one day. Creon hesitated, but pity for her children swayed him. He granted her request, believing himself both firm and merciful. He could not know he'd sealed his own fate. Medea's plea was a calculated move, not a cry for mercy. She now had time to set her plan in motion. The king's compassion would be his undoing. The countdown to tragedy had begun. That day, King Aegeus of Athens crossed Medea's path, desperate for an heir. Medea promised him a cure for his childlessness, in exchange for sanctuary in Athens. She made him swear a sacred oath to protect her if she reached his city. Aegeus, hopeful, agreed, unaware of the role he'd play in her revenge. With a safe haven secured, Medea's mind turned fully to vengeance. She now had a destination and a future. Her escape was planned, her enemies unsuspecting. The gods, it seemed, had given her the final piece she needed. Medea's rage gave way to chilling calm. She summoned Jason, feigning acceptance and submission. She proposed sending gifts, a gown and diadem, to Glauce as tokens of goodwill. Jason, fooled by her apparent repentance, agreed, believing peace was possible. Medea instructed her sons to deliver the gifts, presenting them as innocent messengers. The gifts, however, were laced with deadly magic. Jason saw resolution. Medea saw the perfect trap. The calm was a mask. Death was on its way to the palace. Medea's sons, innocent and unaware of their mother's true intentions, carried the beautifully wrapped gifts to Princess Glauce. The palace was filled with a tense, uneasy calm as they entered, the echoes of recent conflict still lingering in the air. Glauce, radiant in her youth and hope, accepted the gifts with a grateful smile, believing that this gesture marked the end of the bitter feud between her father, King Creon, and Medea. She saw the gifts, a shimmering gown and a dazzling diadem, as symbols of peace, tokens of a new beginning for her and Jason. Alone in her private chamber, Glauce's excitement grew as she carefully unwrapped the delicate fabric and precious jewels. She slipped into the gown, feeling the luxurious material against her skin, and placed the diadem upon her head. Admiring her reflection, she marveled at the transformation. The gifts seemed almost magical, enhancing her beauty and status. For a fleeting moment she allowed herself to dream of a future filled with happiness, love, and acceptance in her new family. But that moment was shattered in an instant. Without warning, a searing pain coursed through her body. The gown and diadem, once so beautiful, became instruments of torture. The poison hidden within the fabric and metal ignited, burning her flesh and fusing the gifts to her skin. Glauce's cries of agony echoed through the marble halls, her body convulsing as the deadly magic took hold. The room filled with the acrid scent of burning fabric and flesh, a horrifying contrast to the earlier tranquility. Her piercing screams drew attendants, and moments later, King Creon himself. Panic erupted as they rushed to her side, desperate to help. The king, seeing his beloved daughter in such torment, was overcome with terror and grief. Servants tried to tear the gown from her body, but the cursed fabric clung to her, impossible to remove. The palace, once a place of order and grandeur, descended into chaos and horror. In a final, desperate act of love, Creon threw his arms around Glauce, hoping to save her or at least share in her suffering. But the deadly magic showed no mercy. The poison leapt from daughter to father, engulfing them both in excruciating flames. Their cries mingled, echoing through the palace as the fire consumed them, binding them together in a tragic, inescapable embrace. When the flames finally died, all that remained were their lifeless bodies, fused together by the cruel magic. The royal family's hopes and dreams were reduced to ashes in a single, merciless moment. The chamber, once filled with light and laughter, was now a tomb of sorrow and loss. News of the tragedy spread rapidly. The palace erupted in chaos as servants and courtiers fled in terror, their faces twisted in fear and disbelief. Outside, the city was gripped by panic. Crowds gathered in the streets, rumors swirling like wildfire. The people of Corinth, once proud of their royal family, now faced a future clouded by uncertainty and dread. At the heart of it all stood Medea, her face set with grim determination. Her vengeance had been swift, calculated, and absolute. She had struck at the very heart of her enemies, leaving no doubt about the depth of her wrath. Yet, behind her fierce exterior, a storm of emotions raged. Grief, anger, and the cold satisfaction of justice served. Word of the calamity raced through the city, messengers ran from house to house, and whispers filled the markets and temples. No one felt safe. The shadow of Medea's vengeance loomed over every household. Mothers clutched their children, and fathers looked anxiously toward the palace, fearing what might come next. The royal line, once thought unbreakable, was destroyed in a single, merciless act. The throne room stood empty, its symbols of power toppled and scattered. The legacy of Creon and Glauce was erased in a moment, leaving only grief and ruin in its wake. Medea's revenge was complete, but her journey was far from over. As she walked away from the burning palace, her silhouette framed by the flames, she knew that the consequences of her actions would ripple through the city and her own heart. The path ahead was dark, and her work was not yet done. The people of Corinth, once fearful, now turned their fury toward Medea and her children. An angry mob gathered outside the palace gates, their shouts echoing through the night. The city demanded justice, and the threat to Medea and her sons grew with every passing moment. As darkness fell over the city, an ominous shadow loomed above the palace. The corridors echoed with silence, and the air was thick with foreboding. The final, most terrible act of Medea's story was yet to come, and all of Corinth held its breath, waiting for the next chapter of tragedy to unfold. As Corinth erupted in chaos, Medea faced a monstrous choice. She knew her sons would be hunted, punished for her crimes. To spare them a brutal fate, she resolved to kill them herself. It was both an act of twisted mercy and ultimate revenge against Jason. She would destroy his future, erasing his lineage forever. Her love and hate fused in a single horrifying act. With tears and a heart of stone, she ended her sons' lives. When Jason arrived, it was too late. Medea stood above him, her sons' bodies at her feet. She had severed every tie to her mortal life. The unthinkable was done, her vengeance total. Jason, shattered, watched Medea vanish with their sons' bodies, her vengeance complete. The once great hero of the Argonauts stood powerless, his heart heavy with the weight of his choices. The echoes of Medea's final words rang in his ears, a haunting reminder of the price of betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, Jason felt the cold grip of despair tighten around him. Alone, he was left with nothing. No family, no legacy, only ruin. The once vibrant halls of his home now stood silent, the laughter of his children replaced by an eerie stillness. Each dawn brought with it a painful reminder of his solitude, the empty stone ruins a stark contrast to the life he once knew. The memories of his past glories seemed like distant dreams, overshadowed by the harsh reality of his present. His heroism faded into infamy. He wandered Greece, haunted and broken. The whispers of his former comrades and the judgmental stares of strangers followed him wherever he went. Each step he took on the deserted cobblestone paths felt heavier than the last, burdened by the weight of his past deeds. The ruins of Greece mirrored his own shattered spirit, a once great hero reduced to a shadow of his former self. The Argo, once a symbol of glory, rotted on the Corinthian shore, mirroring his decline. The ship that had once carried him to the ends of the earth now lay in ruins, its timbers splintered and overgrown with weeds. It was a poignant symbol of his own fall from grace, a reminder of the fleeting nature of glory and the relentless passage of time. The sight of the decaying vessel filled him with a profound sense of loss, a tangible representation of his own shattered dreams. Years later, Jason died alone, crushed by a piece of his own decaying ship. The irony of his demise was not lost on him in his final moments. The very vessel that had once been his pride and joy, the source of his greatest triumphs, had become his tomb. His death was as ignoble as his life had become, a tragic end to a once heroic figure. The sea, which had once been his ally, now bore silent witness to his final, lonely moments. No battle, no honor, just a quiet, ignoble end. The waves lapped gently at the shore, indifferent to the tragedy that had unfolded. There were no songs sung in his honor, no tales of bravery to be told. His end was as quiet and unremarkable as the deserted shoreline, a stark contrast to the life of adventure and heroism he had once led. The world moved on, leaving Jason's memory to fade into obscurity. Medea's prophecy was fulfilled. Jason's name died with him. The words of the ancient scrolls had come to pass, their ominous predictions now a reality. The once great hero's name was now but a whisper in the annals of history, a cautionary tale of ambition and betrayal. The cracked stone tablets bore silent witness to the fulfillment of Medea's curse, a testament to the power of fate and the inevitability of destiny. Their story became a warning of ambition, betrayal, and the wrath of the wronged. The ancient amphitheaters echoed with the tragic tale, a story passed down through generations as a lesson to all who would listen. The weathered statues stood as silent sentinels, their expressions of anguish and betrayal a stark reminder of the consequences of one's actions. The legend of Jason and Medea was more than just a story. It was a timeless warning of the dangers of hubris and the devastating power of vengeance. In the end, fate proved as relentless as Medea's vengeance. The stormy skies and crashing waves were a fitting backdrop to the tale of Jason's downfall. The forces of nature, much like the forces of fate, were unstoppable and unforgiving. Jason's story was a testament to the power of destiny, a reminder that no one, not even the greatest of heroes, could escape the consequences of their actions. The legend of Jason and Medea endures, a chilling lesson from the ancient world. The ancient mosaics and ruins stood as enduring symbols of their story, a tale that had transcended time and continued to captivate the imagination of all who heard it. The lingering shadows at dusk were a poignant reminder of the darkness that had befallen Jason, a hero whose legacy was forever marred by his tragic end. The story of Jason and Medea was more than just a myth. It was a powerful lesson from the ancient world, a chilling reminder of the consequences of ambition and betrayal.